Q Bert is an arcade game developed and published in 1982. It's a 2D action game with puzzle elements that use isometric graphics to create a pseudo 3D effect. The objective is to change the color of every cube in the pyramid by making the on-screen character hop on top of the cube while avoiding obstacles and enemies. The enemies are Collie, who first appears as a purple egg that bounces to the bottom of the pyramid and then transforms into a snake that chases after Q Bert. Ugg and Wrong Way, two purple creatures that hop along the sides of the cubes. And finally Slick and Sam, two green creatures that descend down the pyramid and reverse the cubes whose colour has already been changed. To the side of the pyramid are two spinning warp discs. These will transport the player back to the top of the pyramid, often causing the snake enemy to follow you to its death. A reasonable port for the Atari 2600. It's missing the character Ugg and Wrong Way, and there's no animation for Q Bert, but I find that it controls fairly well if you tilt the joystick to a diagonal slant. While this 5200 version looks nicer than the 2600, it plays far worse in my opinion. The controls are a real pain in the ass. I found myself jumping in directions I didn't want to, and then even not being able to jump at all in certain situations. What can I say? The Atari 8-bit family computer port of Q Bert is pretty similar to that found on the 5200, but it does look a little nicer. This ColecoVision port isn't that different from the Atari 5200 version, but at least it controls much better. It has a similar control system as that found in the Atari 2600 port. Okay, finally we are getting to ports that look pretty good. Here we have the Commodore 64 version, which features well-defined sprites and responsive controls. The audio does seem to be out of sync though, which is odd. Oh boy, the Commodore VIC-20 port of Q Bert is an ugly one. Horrid nasty blocks around everything. There is a reason for this, however. The VIC-20 can't do hardware sprites, so the developer has most likely used character sets to draw the sprites, which results in the black boxes. There is a homebrew version for the VIC-20, I believe, which looks much nicer if my memory serves me right. The Intellevision was never known for being a look-over console, however its port of Q Bert isn't too bad for the system. Sure, there's no animation for Q Bert and the graphics are very chunky, but overall it's a serviceable port. Holy crap, this BBC Micro port is bloody awful. There's no animation at all, the controls are mapped to stupid positions on the keyboard, and the input delay is terrible. The only plus points are the nice colours used, and the software company behind this call themselves Superior Software. Superior Shaftware more like it. What's this? A version of Q Bert from a Japanese company? Yep, the Famicom version of Q Bert was brought to us by Konami, and unlike many of the other versions out at the time, this one actually allows you to customize the controls, making it one of the best ports of its time without a doubt. We can't get more basic than this. The Odyssey 2 was never known for its graphics, less so than the Atari 2600. Still, its port of Q Bert is somewhat playable. Not a bad effort all round, plus I do love the sound effects. This is the Sega SG-1000 port, which also runs on the Othello Multivision. Another good port of Q Bert, but one that does arrange the levels somewhat. If there was one bad point, it would be that sometimes the stage cube colours can be the same as Q Bert, rendering him difficult to see. Game Boy fans could also play Q Bert on the move. This very well made port is arranged somewhat, but that only adds to the replay value in my opinion. Due to the resolution of the Game Boy screen, this version of the game scrolls the stages, which can make it a little tricky to know where you're going at times. Pressing pause will bring up a map, however, to help you out. Later on, Game Boy fans could play Q Bert in colour, but in all honesty, the original release by Jellico is far better. Its Game Boy Colour version isn't as smooth, plus it has cheap AI at times. Technically, this is actually a different game, but I thought I should add it to avoid the million comments saying, "You missed the SNES version." The game starts off with the first stage of the arcade game, but soon differs to all manner of new stages. Some are good, while others are pretty awful. There's also a few new enemy characters called Frog, Top Hat, and Derby. Texas Instruments 99/A4 was never a massive hit with gamers, but it did have some fairly good arcade ports on it, including this version of Q Bert. It's pretty much what you'd expect really, nice and colourful with good enough controls. Q Bert comes to the next generation in this PlayStation remake. We can play with the original arcade graphics or all new 3D graphics, which you are seeing here. There's also an adventure mode, which is basically the arcade game with some extra fluff thrown in. The Dreamcast version of the game is basically the same as a PlayStation port, but with flashier graphics. Since I showed the regular stages on the PlayStation, let's take a look at the adventure mode on the Dreamcast. It's difficult to pass judgment on the ZX Spectrum port since it was never actually finished. Only this prototype exists, and to be honest, it's terrible. And let's take a look at all those versions of Q Bert running side by side.